a pony knowledge by. Oh, better. I got a place where winning ain't tough to do. You wanna be cool, StableDuel. Your horse racing fantasy comes true. But no, StableDuel. Download the StableDuel app and play today.
Another big weekend in racing. It's kind of the next few weeks, Matt. They're kind of like the calm before the storm, right? Because we've had all these big Kentucky Derby prep weekends, and now we've got a few weekends that lead up to the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby just a few weeks from now. But what's great about this time is one of my favorite racetracks to play. And I think if you're a horse player, you're always going to be taking a look at the races at Keeneland. It's just incredible racing over there. And so for what we're going to call maybe like a sleepy weekend, not too bad when we got some big action at Keeneland on Friday and Saturday and all these StableDuel games to dive into. Matt, they've got a lot of feeders going on now. There's a couple different series. You'll notice today on Friday, there are a lot of options for your StableDuel games at Keeneland. There's a free ride. There's a $2 game. There's a $10 feeder, and then there's a $40 game that's a bigger game with $4,000 in prize pools. So what I love is we've seen over a few years at StableDuel, they try something that works. Okay, maybe they didn't get that great of a response on that. They're going to try something else. So they're always going to be very, listening to feedback. They're going to be very adaptable to whatever the players want there at StableDuel. So we are seeing now opportunities to win your way into other contests. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's a great way. I mean, it's a way that if you don't want to necessarily, get in the big money contest in Keeneland on Saturday, well, here, go to enter the $10 feeder contest on Friday. And hey, if you finish in the top 3, guess what? You get into the bigger contest on Saturday. So I love that. I think it rewards. I mean, as well as I do, you go in those smaller dollar or free games. There are some killers in those games, man. There are people dropping 400 or 500, 500 points sometimes. And then you look at what the winning stables were in the $10 or $50 games. And it's like the top 10 in the free rides would dominate those if they entered. So it's a great way to get more players involved.
Well, we are going to get involved this weekend, Matt. For me, it's going to be a lot of Keeneland this weekend.
A lot of Keeneland for me too. Yeah, we're all in on Keeneland.
I'll have maybe 1 or 2 Santa Anita for Friday, but it'll be a lot of Keeneland Friday, a lot of Keeneland Saturday.
Yep.
And I might be in a little bit of trouble today, Matt, because I like a lot of horses at Keeneland today, and there's horses, so I could be in some serious trouble in just a few hours. Anyone that wants to dive in, what's great is that every day, if you're curious, you wake up, I don't got a lot going on today. I want to see some action. Just go to the website, StableDuel.com, check out the blog section, and you can find out the contest schedule right here. Or you can just go to the app every day. It's free when you download it. You can take a look at what games are available for you to play. Here is the menu for you to have a little taste of the action from StableDuel. Matt, let's jump right into Keeneland for Friday. Where do you want to head for one of your Keeneland Friday plays?
Well, I know you have a Keeneland Friday play, I believe, in race 2.
I do. And so does our buddy Barry. He left, and we got to give a shout out. We always miss anytime one of the full crew isn't here. I miss you guys. We become like the triumvirate, right? We're like the tripod here. So shout out to our good friend Barry, who's handling some bids with the family today. But he did leave us with a couple parting gifts.
Yes. And so I was going to set you up if you wanted to kind of, because I really like the third horse in this race as well, but I was going to give you a second one just in case, but I'll let you speak to Personal Best, who I know Barry and you both really like.
Yeah. So Barry mentioned this horse last night, and I really am a fan of this one. So we're looking at race number 2 at Keeneland. They're going to be going a mile and a 16th on the turf course here. Personal Best debuted for Shug McGahee on March the 13th. And Shug isn't necessarily a trainer who cranks them first time out of the box, right? Generally, they take a couple races to get a little bit of experience. So we're going to be watching the race of the number 5 here, Personal Best. He's the 5 in this race at Gulfstream that we were watching before. Now, this was on March the 13th. This was her debut. And this was going 7.5 furlongs. So she's the gray here. and she settles towards the rear, maybe like ninth or so.
Yeah.
She does get floated a little bit wide, kind of going into the first turn right there, but she ends up, settling. It's not a bad spot. But what's going to happen is she's going to kind of move inside a little bit, and that's going to end up hurting her. So we'll watch her sort of settle towards the back here, and she's traveling pretty well. What's nice about her personal best, her damn war flag was a grade 1 winner going long on the turf. So at this point, she's like, you know what? The 10 starts to move out. So look at where the 5 is with the green cap. Look at the move that they make right there, trying to get in. So, okay, they want to get over and save some ground a little bit. But what happens, unfortunately, is they get caught in between horses right now. So now instead of being on the outside of the 10, when they were losing a little bit of a ground, now they're on the inside of the 10. Watch what happens to the 5 right here. They just got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Right here, like you're sort of on the inside, kind of shifting. Now you're down back toward, like, got squeezed out of a spot at the back. Now you're trying to angle down towards the inside. There's just nowhere for the 5 down there with the green cap. But keep watching this 5 with the green cap here. And I'm not a big, like, gallop out person as something that's like, my main handicapping. But watch this horse up the rail. Now, keep watching the 5 here all the way through. And they were intent on getting this horse
there she is, just going
in front of the winner.
Right.
Which normally you see them sort of wrap up on a horse like that, but this horse did not want to stop.
Yeah.
Once they got going. Again, I'm not someone that just will like pick out the gallop out and go, oh, wow. But I think the combination of that's the kind of trouble that I like to see, Matt, because it's sort of sneaky. It's at the back. They got sort of shut off. It wasn't this overwhelming, like steadied, everybody's going to see it kind of trouble. I know one man who saw it, though, the sniper, Barry Spears. He also saw it. So for StableDuel, 8-1 morning line, only going to cost us $3,000. I feel like that's a really nice play to get our card started at Keeneland.
I agree. I mean, I agree with everything you said about personal best. I also, when I was looking at this card, I felt like that horse just screamed out a great StableDuel play. And this horse, you want to talk about getting bet down. I would imagine this horse is going to get bet down significantly by post time. So, because you got Shug and Jose Ortiz on board. So, the horse I'll mention as maybe if you're looking to go even a little more inexpensive in this race, I'll go right next door to the 4, Paris Paramore at 10-1. This is a horse that's intriguing to me, and I like this horse. Gino, you and I have talked about horses like this. I can explain every race, and when and that to me that means a lot. So you look first time out, yielding turf, sprinting. This horse is not a sprinter. Doesn't like yielding turf. Doesn't really perform that well. Then goes to Keeneland, a big-time maiden special weight race, stretches out to 1 mile and a 16th, has all types of trouble, but finishes 5th by a half a length. So right there with the finisher. So that 5th place finish is a little deceiving, half length off the win. So very easily could have broken her maiden that day. Then goes to Turfway Park and runs on the synthetic. That does not go well. Doesn't like that surface. And one of those things where, I think that's an easy toss. Also puts her to the bench for two months. So something may have happened in that race. Then comes back from the bench, runs at Fairgrounds, runs a really nice 4th at 1 mile and a 16th as well. So, like I said, 4th by 2 lengths. So I can kind of explain every race and why this horse ran the way it did. Do I think personal best is a far better win candidate? But if you're looking for a horse that is a little bit more inexpensive and may just hit the board, I like Paris Paramore to run a nice race here. And I could see this horse, getting a piece.
I keep thinking, oh, whatever makes me brave. I wanted it now. Oh, never mind. For the last 30 seconds, Paramore was just playing in my head as you were talking through. I was like I was taken back to when I was working at Islands 15 years ago, I think. That was and I was like, I could hear that song playing in the background while I was walking through. So
I love it.
Paris Paramore for Maddie in race number 2 today at Keeneland to kick things off. But you know what? I'm going to be might be crazy, might be a little energetic this morning because I'm going to be having some sugar early on. Give me back to Shug one more time in race number 5, Maddie. Let's go to Shug McGahee one more time. I'm going race number 5 once again, and I'm looking at the 8 in here. Talking Book.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's go to Talking Book here on the outside. Now, this is a 5-year-old mare. And it's really funny. This weekend, I don't know what, for whatever reason it is, there were so many horses that I looked at either at Santa Anita or at Keeneland that I like that are like lightly raced 5-year-olds. I don't know what there was about it. There's like all these horses that only have a few races. So you got to take horses like this with a grain of salt, right? Because we probably can assume that she's had some physical issues along the way.
Clearly.
She's 5 years old. She's only raced 5 times. But this is another one, just like what you were talking about. I love horses to me that I look at and I go, she makes a lot of sense. Yeah. She debuted back in February of 2020 at Gulfstream Park. She was a step slow. She didn't finish all that badly either. She finished 5th. She split the field. She ran behind a couple next out winners. Hey, there's I'm Too Sexy also finishing 3rd there. She came back and improved quite a bit in her second start. She just missed on April the 20th. Then she was off from April the 20th to February of 2021. Yeah. And even off that long layoff, she won, going 1 mile and an 1/8. She came back a few months later. She was actually favored in a first level allowance at Keeneland about a year ago in this same meet. But that was going 1.5 miles. I think it's pretty easy to put a line right through that race and just say, hey, you know what? It was a race that was going 1.5 miles. And after that race, what happened? She went back to the bench for another 8 months, right? 9 months, from April all the way back to February again. So she then shows up in February, and that effort wasn't bad. She was towards the back of the pack, but what you'll notice is when you look at the running line, and always got to give a shout out to DRF, Daily Racing Form, and their past performances. We get the opportunity to look at the Daily Racing Form Formulator PPs. So if you'll notice with Talking Book, what you'll see in the running lines for this race, there was no passing. Right. Star Seeking won the race gate to wire, won by 4.5. Talking Book was 3rd in here. And so Talking Book was way out of it, makes up some late ground, is the only horse to pass in a race where there's no other passing whatsoever. I think you can toss the 1.5 mile, the 1.5 mile race. She's proven at 1.8 miles, so I have no concern about her getting that distance. Yep. Now, I do have one tad concern. It's the race shape. I don't know if she's going to get the type of pace she needs to win. Yep. I do feel pretty confident that she will be passing some late horses, though, and she'll be at least picking up some pieces. So second off the bench, she puts 2 together. She's got all those layoff lines. I think we can make an excuse for the 1.5 mile race. She's 12-1. Joelle jumps aboard. I think this is another horse that, to me, she looks more like a 6 or 8-1 shot. Yeah. Than a 12-1 shot. You know?
Yeah. No, I like this horse, and it's funny. You can stay in the same race for one of my other plays. So I actually like the horse that finished right ahead of her at Queen Bourbon last time at 6-1. Again, this feels like a horse that might be closer to 3 or 4-1 in my eyes. So at 6-1, $5,000 at StableDuel, Queen Bourbon again makes a lot of sense. This was a horse that was running on dirt and going 1.25 miles on dirt and doing well. So distance is not going to be an issue at all. Goes to Churchill, breaks her maiden at 1.8 miles. So has broken her maiden at this distance on the turf. But then goes to the bench for 7 months, for 8 months. Yep. And comes back in that race you mentioned at Gulfstream Park. And so comes off the bench and runs career best buyers and
speed.
Yeah. And finishes second. And so I just thought this is a horse now, same reason, second off the layoff. I know this horse can do the distance. And I think, you mentioned the way this race shapes up. There's not a lot of speed. I think Queen Bourbon might be a little bit more forwardly placed than Talking Book. I think maybe sitting just maybe even 2 or 3 positions ahead. Yep. And so I just think that last kick is not going to be maybe quite as much to ask for. So, I think, again, what we talk about regularly, we're identifying the same races.
Yep.
And so going after the favorites here, I think makes a lot of sense, because I think you could make an argument for the 7 as well. Final Bell. I think that's a horse that also has a very similar profile of a nice maiden effort, goes on the bench for a long time, comes back, runs decently at Gulfstream. I'm a little more worried about her being able to do the distance, but I do like the 5 Queen Bourbon, and I'd actually maybe double up with like the 5 and the 8 in this race.
This
I
race
like that.
Came back live. Star Seeking was the one that beat the horses that we like.
Yeah,
and she was right there in that race with Star Seeking. They finished right next to each other. We've already seen Star Seeking, Champagne Lady come back and win, and Gladys all come back and win out of that race. And then Gladys not only won, but then she went and finished 3rd in the Grade 2 Hillsborough behind Bleecker Street. So that form has been very, very good. Also for Final Bell, if you want to throw her in. And shout out to Umberto Rispoli. Man, like just the conversation I had with him a couple of weeks ago. Like, I love this guy now. I feel like I don't know if you've what's it from I don't know, is it Knocked Up? It's like, not only do I like him, I think he really would like me and think that I'm a cool guy. He's gonna hang out with me. I think that's Seth Rogen and Knocked Up. We're talking about Vince Vaughn. He's like, Vince Vaughn is cool, but you know what? I actually think that he might like me. You think I'm a cool guy and just want to hang out with me. So
I love it.
Shout out to our buddy Rispoli out there, who's got a big mount a little bit later on today. Do you have anything between the 2nd and the 5th?
So I do actually. I have the 3rd.
Let's go back in time.
Yeah. So the 3rd race, which is a $40,000 claimer, non-winners of 2 mile and a 16th on the dirt. We'll go to the number 5, Carrillo, who is 8-1, $3,000 in your StableDuel lineup. And this is another horse that I just think, again, you can explain a lot of its recent performances. You can certainly toss the turf race the last time out. The previous 2 times is in the slop. This horse likes to come from off the pace. If there's a type of horse that I traditionally fade, it's closers in slop, because a horse is it's one thing to get dirt kicked up in your face. It's another thing to get mud, thrown up in your face. And a lot of times horses don't respond well to that. So I think you can look at those last 3 and explain why there's been such a drop off in this horse's previous form, because this horse was looking really nice. And then all of a sudden just starts to turn in some poor performances. But I think track conditions has a lot more to do than that. And then the surface change. Now this horse is getting back on dirt, and it should be nice conditions today at Keeneland, unlike last weekend, where it was hail, sleet, freezing rain. It was like the U.S. Postal Service. It was just everything. So I think this horse, has a little bit of pace to run into in this race. I think the 3, the 4, and the 7 are all probably going to be pretty forwardly placed. I even think the 6 will probably be in a nice stalking position. So there should be a little bit of pace over here for the 5 to run into. And again, if the 5 regathers even a fraction of that form back at Churchill, it's the best horse in this field. So so I like this horse a lot. I know the distance isn't going to be an issue. Again, $3,000 at 8-1. You get Rene Diaz aboard. He's a jockey I've talked about before. He's an apprentice jock that I really like a lot. He was the top apprentice jock at Fairgrounds this last meet. He now comes to Keeneland. I've talked to a lot of people who have very high opinions of him. And so that's something which, I just always kind of keep in the back of my mind. And over a mile and a 16th, this horse is also getting a 7-pound weight allowance, which, I sometimes will poo-poo the whole weight issue, but you start going longer and longer. Absolutely. And that starts to add up a little bit more. Yeah. So I think for all those reasons, Carrillo's a really a live horse in this race at 8-1 for only 3,000.
Carrillo for Maddie. I have races 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I'll be all stacked in a row.
I have 8 and 9. So go for it.
Let's continue along the way at Keeneland on this Friday card. Make sure to get on over to StableDuel if you have your apps downloaded. If not, go download that app for free. You can actually play in a free game today. So if you're watching us, you've never seen a StableDuel game, or you've never jumped in and played one, now is the time for you. It won't cost you a cent. You build your lineup based on a salary cap format. So that's the reason why we're always giving out horses that are really big prices, because it doesn't really help you if we give you out horses that are short prices and you have to spend a whole punch of your salary cap. We want to try to give you horses that can actually make it easier for you to put your lineups together. So it makes it a little bit more difficult, but it makes it a lot more challenging and more fun as we get into race number 6 on Friday. So this is another one of those really cool races where it's like we know a lot of these horses.
Yeah.
Major Fed was in the Derby last year. Enforceable is a horse we've seen over the last couple of years in top tier races. Enforceable was in the Derby 2 years ago.
Yep.
We've got Concert Tour. Farmington Road was in the Belmont, was in the Arkansas Derby in 2020. Concert Tour was your Rebel winner, was third in the Arkansas Derby, was in the Preakness. Lots of familiar names in here. And the horse who I'm looking at is the 5 Farmington Road.
Yep. Makes sense.
Now, what I like about him is, if you remember, he was always like a stone cold closer.
Yeah.
He never really had a whole lot of speed. That was sort of one of the problems, is that he would drop back. Remember his race here against Nadal or in the Belmont. He's behind Tiz the Law here. He would just be so far back in these Oaklawn Stakes. Remember, this was early on in the pandemic when they were just creating stakes races out there. And this was that they ended up using as like a prep. Because remember, the Arkansas Derby was run on May the 2nd, the day that the Kentucky Derby was. So he was, at this point, pretty good. He was just a deep closer. And, you follow the pattern of him, and then he jumps on the turf a little bit. And towards the end of last year, the race that jumped out at me was the one on November the 26th at Churchill.
Yep.
That race would probably win this.
Yes, I agree.
An effort just like that November 26th race. Yep. And what I like seeing about him in the last, 4 or 5 races that he's run, he has shown a lot more speed. He actually went fast in that last race. They went, look at how fast they went to the half mile, 46:30 to the half mile there at Tampa, going a mile. I think what happened was he drew down towards the inside. It was one of those things where you kind of break well, and then you just go.
Yep.
Right? You just go on with it. And so now I know that this horse can pass horses. I know that he's got a little bit more speed now. I know that from a class standpoint, he's actually stacked up pretty well in graded stakes company and against other classy horses. And where I'm looking at this field, he's got the benefit of 2 races under his belt. He's going to go third start of the form cycle. Yep. He's 8-1 on the morning line. He's only going to cost me $3,000 in StableDuel. I think this is a great spot, Matt, for Farmington Road.
I like this. This is a horse I was eyeing too, and this is a nice field. And I'm all about fading Concert Tour. And so so I was kind of looking, well, how do I get past Concert Tour and where's some other value? What I also like about this is you mentioned how this horse kind of changed running styles a little bit about 5 races ago. What I like is that Brian Hernandez, who's his jockey today, rode him 3 races back with this kind of new, slightly more aggressive form. So I like that this jockey knows we can be a little bit more aggressive with this horse on the lead, or get this horse out there. And this is, again, an 8-horse field. So, he should be sitting in a much, much better position, maybe a stalking position, and probably not on the lead, but, we'll see. So I actually would like this horse to sit off of Concert Tour if Concert Tour wants to go. So, I like this. And, no issues on the distance, and going back to, I think it's better surface on dirt. So, I like this play a lot.
Farmington Road. Hopefully I'll be singing it. Anytime I got the road at the end of it, I can do the little. I think of National Lampoons.
National Lampoons, yeah, absolutely.
I see them driving around. I think it's the scene when Chevy sees the girl and he's driving, and it's the hot girl in the convertible, and he's looking at her, and he's, oh no!
Is it Christy Brinkley, right? Isn't that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Good call. Good call there. God, Chevy, man. Chevy's one who. He is such a fantastic case study in history when you look back at Chevy, through his career. Yeah. I love diving into the early days of Saturday Night Live. And it's just one of my favorite things because I did a report in high school on Belushi. So I was just sort of fascinated with that whole era and Chevy and what a big star he was, early days of Eddie Murphy and all that. I love that time period. And I think that a lot of people nowadays who may only know Chevy Chase as sort of like the older actor don't realize what a big star this guy was. Like,
he was
the biggest star in the world at one point.
He was a huge star. I mean, you go, Caddyshack. I mean, you go Caddyshack, you go Fletch. I mean, those were huge. And then the National Lampoons. It's just he was an asshole by all
He
accounts.
was no, exactly.
Like
He was a
impossible to
jerk.
work with.
He
Yeah.
was, and he hurt himself, right?
Yes.
He cost himself a lot of opportunities and a lot of roles throughout the years. And that was, it's like anything, you start reading your own clippings, right?
Yeah.
And he started buying into the hype. He could
Yeah.
see what a big star he was. Everybody was talking about him, and he sort of let it get to his head a little bit too much.
But he played the common man so well. Like, I mean, Clark Griswold is like everybody's dad. And
really,
just like
his biggest break, his whole gimmick was falling over. That's how
it's Jerry Ford. Yeah.
He did the falling over thing, and that was like something that he just had to keep doing. He would do it on night shows, and so that's a podcast for another day.
Yes.
Deep diving Chevy Chase. That is one thing I always laugh. I talk to my dad after these, after we do our Fridays, and I'll always chuckle with him about the best part about handicapping a horse racing card is that the names, you never know where they're going to take you.
Yeah.
You never know which tangent you're going to get to. Music, movies, famous people with all the different names of horses and the sires and the dams. And and we won't ever have a problem having some fun here on Friday mornings, right? Because we don't want it to be a little stuffy all the time. Every single day, things can get monotonous. We got to have a little bit of fun, and we're doing it here every Friday morning with you on this weekend in StableDuel. Okay, I'm going to get a little what my good friend Todd Schrupp used to say, a little crazy with the cheese whiz here in race number 7. Lost my sock. This horse is 30-1 on the morning line. And you know what? Is Lost My Sock, who's the number 4 in this race that we're going to watch, is she on paper quite as good as some of these others? Well, maybe not. But we're watching this race. She's the number 4 in here, and she's in crowded early. Right here you can see it was tight. She's got to kind of back up. She's got to kind of back out of it. So she's ending up, settling inside towards the rear. Even right here, she already lost a couple lengths.
Oh, yeah.
It was crowded, so she had to take back. She was right up in here, right behind the 2, and you can see where they are. They're in some tight quarters. Now she moves down towards the inside, and I thought she's traveling pretty well down on the inside here, but she sort of runs into traffic. Yeah. She's got nowhere to go. She's right up on the heels of the 2. And now she's got to angle around. She's trying to push her way out, and she does. She shifts out, and she starts moving right here. I thought she closed really well. She's only beaten a length. This is her first start in a couple months. It's a little low on the buyer scale, and so, maybe she gets – but look, she's not far out of it. She's trying. Like if that race was 5.5, she might have won that race.
Yeah.
And that was 5. She beat a field at Aqueduct in December, sprinting from the rail at 50-1.
Yeah.
So she's a horse who has no problem shocking the world at a big price. She's already done it before. The horse she beat that day came back to win. She's going to put 2 together. Here are some of the things I'm looking at. Dairy Nane is going to take some money, but she hasn't run since November.
Yep.
We got Ruthin, who's going to take some money, but she hasn't run since June at Ascot.
Yep.
We've got Coffee Maker, who's going to take some money. She hasn't run since November.
We should point out that Barry likes Coffee Maker.
Yes. Thank you. Good call. I'm glad we did. And she's fine. Like I have no problem with Coffee Maker,
right?
Or Her World or Thunder Love. My whole angle is that all of these horses might need a race for their best.
I completely agree with you. Completely agree.
That's just a little bit under the radar. Had some sneaky trouble. If we're playing her off the Aqueduct race and thinking that she could step forward a little bit off of that speed figure, he would be maybe half of the price.
Yeah.
But because she went down a little bit, people go, okay. And the race was at Tampa. It probably wasn't that strong. I like that she's getting back to 5.5. I like that a lot of the rest of this field is coming off the bench. We haven't seen another Gunboat's another one who has not raced since December. At least she's got the benefit of the race. We know she can pass some horses. I think she's got a little more speed than it showed last time out because we saw her. She broke well, but then she was in that crowd and she had to take back and come on again. Can she win this race? Things might have to break really well. But if she does, you're going to hear one little Italian guy in Long Beach screaming, I can promise you that. So,
and
so
it is,
listen.
and as I always point out, for $50, honestly, if this horse finishes, if this horse finishes fourth, we're thrilled. Like,
Anything.
I mean, come on. I mean,
It's a
yeah,
free roll in StableDuel.
exactly. Yeah.
So the Limestone, the TVG Limestone Stakes, race number 7, lost my sock. Let's get nuts in race number 7. Matt, you said you've got one in race number 8. I've got one in the 8th and the 9th. Where do you want to head?
So let's go to the 11 horse in the 8th race.
Oh, we're on the same one here.
All right. Nice.
Liberty MD.
Yeah. So this is a horse I just think makes a lot of sense in this spot. 12-1, going to cost you $750 on StableDuel. Julian Leperoux's aboard. This is a horse, if you look at this, again, every race makes sense and tells a story.
Love this today, Matt. We're in some trouble.
We are. But, goes out, breaks a maiden at 7 furlongs at Churchill, comes right back in June of 2021 in a high-level allowance at a mile, wins that by a half a length, and you're thinking this horse is really onto something. Yep. Then maybe gets a little into the deep end, goes up to the grade 3 up at Saratoga, goes a mile and an eighth. That doesn't go well. Clearly something happened. You don't want to speculate. I'm not sure exactly, but clearly the horse had a tough break and just didn't run particularly well. Goes on the bench.
Put a line right through it, right?
Yeah, put a line right through it.
And then, it's funny because on some of the other, I do that when I'm handicapping the races just for my own sanity. Because you just covered the buyer of the 54 right there in the middle.
Yeah.
And you covered the race where the horse was beaten 27 lengths. Now, how much better does that form look?
Incredible. Because now this horse comes back off an incredibly long layoff. You're looking at an 8-month layoff, comes back and runs an optional claimer down at Gulfstream, finishes second to Kamari, who, by the way, was the morning line favorite last week at a grade 1 Madison, and then finished third.
And is a former grade 1 winner.
Right.
Now watch, we are the number 5. Let me make sure. We're the number 5 in this race that I'm going to watch.
Yeah.
Watch this race too. This is a very impressive race. So squeeze back, boom. So now we're in a field of 5 and we just got squeezed and we spotted the rest of the field 4 lengths.
Yep.
Right. So it's like, okay, you're probably in some trouble. And look at the trip. So Kamari ends up just sitting right off of them. Look at what Kamari does. They just angle her sort of to the outside because they know that she's much better than the rest of this field. She's 1-9 here. Yeah. And we're still not on the screen.
Right.
We're not on the page yet. But watch the middle move from Liberty MD. This horse flies, moves 3 wide, all the way up, and looks like she's going to blow by Kamari.
Yeah.
And she gets right on even terms with her. But what ends up happening here, Kamari's just a classier horse. That's all.
And Liberty MD's used up a lot of her speed to get to that point.
And Liberty MD has not raced since July.
Right.
Here.
And is now getting gassed. Yeah.
Spotted the field, had the middle move just to get into contention, hadn't raced since July. And, the horse who you're going to go up and challenge is a grade 1 winner.
Yeah.
You still run. That's a winning race. She's still lengths clear of the 3rd place finisher.
Yep. And
she has every right to take a big step forward off of that race. Yep. I thought it was extremely impressive. Like we said, coolest thing about, the DRF formulator is you just go right there from watching a race to boom, 2 seconds later, you're clicking on the chart and you're seeing Kamari, right?
Yep.
And that's you don't have to pull up a whole bunch of different websites. You don't have to have a bunch of different tabs up. You're boom, boom, boom. And here's Kamari. We're talking about the grade 1 Madison winner. We're talking about a horse who was just, your grade 1 was 5-2 in that race behind Just One Time. Shout out to Just One Time. You and I were all over that one.
All over that horse. Yeah.
Yeah. So we liked Just One Time there, but I mean, Liberty MD feels like a fantastic spot for her today.
And to your point, about the other race, in this one, 7 of the 12 horses are coming off the bench.
Yep.
That's another thing. And now you have, Liberty MD second off the bench. So there's a lot of horses, again, that have been kind of on ice for a while. And
need a race just to get to their best level, right?
Yeah. And I look at the
far-sighted.
Yep. And I look at a horse, I look at a horse like, Bees and Honey, and I want no part of that horse. That horse ran
No.
out of its mind last time out and posted something that, posted a buyer's figure 20 points better than it's ever run before in its career, and then promptly went to the bench for 4 months. So yeah, no thanks.
No.
So there's a lot of reasons I'll fade these favorites in this particular race. I think Liberty MD makes a lot of sense.
I've got one in the 9th, one more for
Same.
Friday. We've got the Grade 1 Maker's Mark Mile. Matt, lead the way for us. Where are we going?
I'm going to go with a horse I've been on for a few races before, and that's the number 3, Atone. I like Atone a lot. I think, first of all, let me say, I think you can go in a lot of directions in this race, and there's a lot of value to be had because, again, a lot of horses coming off the bench in this race.
Yep.
And what's funny is when you read the notes in the Daily Racing Form or wherever you get, if you read the notes, everybody goes, oh, well, this trainer must feel really good about this horse bringing him back in a tough spot. And it's like, guess what? 3 minutes after post, they're not going to feel good about bringing these horses back in this spot. Like, everybody can't feel good about this. It's like, oh, everybody feels great. No. So 7 of the 11, just to reiterate this point, 7 of the 11 horses in this field have not run since at least November.
Yep.
Okay. We're not talking about a brief layoff. We're talking about 4 to 5 month layoff at a minimum for 7 of the 11 horses in this field. Now, maybe some of them do come out and fire. Certain trainers like a Chad Brown have a reputation of being able to fire right off the bench quite effectively. That said, Atone has been an ascending horse since going to Mike Maker's barn. This horse, since that trainer change, has seen nothing but increasing speed figures. Every single time out, has stepped up in class, going Grade 2, Grade 1.
5 consecutive races.
And has shown very nicely in those efforts. Second at the Fort Lauderdale Grade 2, 4th by a length at the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. This is a horse that's 4 for 4, hitting the board at a mile. I think it's going to like the cutback. It's been running over a mile recently. 3 of those 4 races in a mile were wins. So this horse does like to win. And so I think this horse makes a lot of sense. It's going to get blinkers, be a little bit more forwardly placed, but I don't think this horse is going to be on the lead. Workouts have been very solid. And I also juxtapose this horse with a horse like Public Sector, who's breaking from the far outside, who's 8-1. Public Sector's never run a buyer's figure better than 91 before. And Atone, meanwhile, has run a 97 and a 98 the last 2 times out, and it's 12-1. So I just feel like there's a little bit of market correction there potentially. And Atone, if you look, the last 2 times out has run well at a big price. And so this is a horse that outruns its odds pretty regularly. As Steve points out here, Gaffleone, double digits, on the turf, it makes a lot of sense to me. So I like everything about Atone. I just think a very, very useful horse in StableDuel. Horse I've used before in StableDuel with great success. Shout
out to Steve. Thanks for checking in with us today, Steve. I gotta say, I can see my girlfriend over there getting ready to go to work. I can see my son, Milo, over there getting ready. And all I feel, Matt, is love.
You're going in love. Yes.
Love all over the place. I love. I think it was Kevin Harlan, who's a fantastic announcer. I want to just confirm, but Caleb Love for North Carolina was recently playing in the college basketball, the March Madness, the Final Four. And one of those games, I will tell you, he had a Rolodex of like every pun possible for love. And I mean, the first 1 or 2, you're like, oh, come on. But when he got to like the 10th one, I was like, this is impressive.
It's just art at that point. Yeah, it's just beautiful.
Because I know how I am. I'm such a dork. In my head, I can picture Kevin Hart or whoever, I think it was him, up late at night, the night before, doing his prep work, like sitting on the computer and like typing in like songs with love, and that's just how I do it sometimes. And I'll make little notes for myself. And I was laughing. It made me really chuckle. He was just, love is all around us. All you need is love. He was just going nuts. So I hope today I'm going to be in love. And Matt, I mean, this is just a nice animal.
It is.
This is a horse that got really, really good towards the middle to end of last year and got very good right around this area. Was an Arlington winner, then won over at Kentucky Downs in a race that was a $300,000 stakes race.
Yep.
Off of that effort, they came in the Grade 1 Keeneland Turf Mile, going a mile right here, won that race, earned very nice speed figures in winning the TBG stakes at Kentucky and in winning the Keeneland Turf Mile. This horse was only 11-1 in the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah.
Like, was not disgraced at all in that race. And honestly, in watching the race, I remember, because I liked this horse a little bit that day. It was just one of a few that I used. Shout out to our buddy Darren Zocali. He sniffed this horse out at Keeneland, coming into Keeneland, and he played In Love big time. In fact, I remember when he played her at Keeneland when she won at 12-1.
Yeah.
But she was one of those, Matt, when she went into the gate, she was 25-1.
Yeah, we know all about that. Yeah.
Winning at half of that price.
Yeah.
So we're watching In Love in this race. She's the 7 in here that we're watching. And remember, this is the Breeders' Cup, right?
Right.
So she's in some early traffic. She's down on the inside, down on the rail there. So what, she's in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, kind of like co-9th. Down there, we see her. She's about 8 or 9 lengths off of the pace. And here's what we do know about this race. Who's up on the front end? That's Smooth Like Straight. And the winner of this race, Space Blues, is sitting 3rd. Yep. So there's no passing in this race.
Yep.
There's not a lot of movement. Look at the 7 right now, In Love. Boom, got a tap on the brakes.
Yep.
Down on the inside. I forgot about this, that she was down there and she ran into that trouble. So she wanted to go, but you could tell she's got nowhere to go. She doesn't like it down inside, so let's shift to the outside. So now instead of going up inside, she's got to move around and go to the outside. And she doesn't run all that poorly here. The problem is you can't do that against the best horses in the world.
No.
You can't have to, you need a perfect trip to win. Because look who does win. The horse who got a perfect trip.
Yep.
He's not that far out of 3rd here.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep saying she, In Love. He is not that far out of 3rd here. He's only beaten 3.5 lengths. He had to shift over. If he just sort of sat on the rail, waited, and that opened up and he was able to move through, he probably runs 3rd.
Yeah.
But he tried to get outside because he would have at least had a chance to win if things went well for him. So I completely understand. I like Alex Achard a lot. I think he's a very underrated rider. In Love, I mean, just off of speed figures, stacks up really well here. Again, we can click very easily on Paulo Lobo and start to look at some of the statistics here. So if you want to customize these statistics, we can see how this barn does with days off. And so this is a horse who's coming off a 61 to 180 day layoff. All we have to do is click that, apply the filter, and we can see that this is a barn who is capable, right?
Yep.
It's not like something they do great, but they're capable of winning with a horse just like this. And we can dig back in and see a horse like Powerful Force. Last year, Powerful Force, who was coming off the bench for this barn, who won a race at Turfway Park at 25-1 at a massive price. So I know with the right type of horse, they're capable. Again, and it's a StableDuel situation where if In Love runs 2nd or 3rd, that's fine. That's fine for me here.
For $1,000, that's great.
10-1 will only cost me $1,000. I just feel like she to me is like a 5 or 6-1 shot in here.
Yeah, and I think this is a race where there's a lot of
horses that are like 6-1.
Yeah, there's a bunch of talent in this race, and that's why in a race like this, I'm always going to try to go cheap because I just go, this is really hard up at the top to go. I definitively like Some Like It Hop Round, or I definitively like Set Piece, or I definitively like, and it's just like maybe they finish 2nd, maybe they finish 3rd, but now I've spent $8,000 on a horse that comes in 3rd. Ho, guest handicapper.
Say hello.
Hey.
Hi. 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 Say hi, Matt. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi, Daddy. Hi.
So,
hi. Oh, oh, what a nice boy. One kiss, one kiss.
No, we got one. We got one. That's good.
One. That's all.
Yeah, that's all you're gonna get. Now,
See you later, buddy.
the other thing I'll say in this race, and just to give you a sense, I think, and just to kind of give people a sense, if they haven't really taken a deep dive into this, just how deep this race is. You look at a horse. You look at a horse like Mason, the 4-horse.
Yep.
At 5-1. I mean, that's another for $6,000 at StableDuel.
This horse might be a monster.
This horse might very well just beat everybody by like 5 lengths.
Runs off the page, it will not shock me at all.
No, and you're getting a halfway decent price on a Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt horse. So, again, there's a lot of ways to go here. I tend to be a little bit more cautious in these types of races, and I like to try to find a horse that's double-digit odds that is going to maybe get a win if things break right, but is going to show well underneath, I think, no matter what. So, because nothing's worse than spending $8,000 on a horse and it coming in 7th. That's rough.
No. So let's head to Saturday.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk. If anyone out there wants a little help, we'll just talk some Keeneland Saturday now. If you want a little help with Santa Anita, you can head on over to That's What G Said podcast. Yep. I gave out early pick 5 today for Santa Anita. I have plays in races 1, 6, and 7. So I also have plays for Saturday, races 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10. So if you need any help with Santa Anita, what they're going to be doing over at Santa Anita, Matt, they're actually going to be taking a little bit of a break, which I think is a fantastic idea. They're going to be off from this Sunday till they have nothing next weekend. And then they will come back on Saturday, the week before the Kentucky Derby, I believe on the 30th. Mm-hmm. So what that does is that gives the West Coast and those horses a little bit of time. It gives them a little bit of an off season because they haven't shifted around at all. This would normally be when the horses would shift from Santa Anita over to Hollywood Park in the olden times. Yep. And so you get a little bit, honestly, what ends up happening too is what's scary for the next 6 weeks to 2 months, the weather. It really starts to warm up at Santa Anita compared to where Hollywood Park was, the about 15 degrees cooler, because that was right over there by the beach. Whereas when you're in much more inland at Santa Anita in the valley, it can get up to 100 degrees. And so I think it's nice sometimes to give a little week off in between. So we'll be picking up Santa Anita again in a few weeks, but we are going to pick up some Saturday Keeneland, my friend. I've got plays in the 2nd, 4th, 7, 9, 11 on Saturday at Keeneland. Where do you want to head?
I'm also in the 2nd, so we can start there.
Let's start right there. Race number 2. You lead the way, my friend. Where are we going?
I'll go with the double deuces. I'll go with the 2nd in the second race. Double clutch at 6-1. Going to cost you $5,000 on StableDuel. So an average horse cost. I just think this is a horse that ran against the morning line favorite last time out, the 12 Growth Capital, and I think in that race, Growth Capital had everything go its way and still came up a little short. Whereas Double Clutch, really faced a lot of issues and was kind of, stuck in a little bit and then had to, just kind of lugged in and it wasn't the greatest trip. And you could tell the horse was pretty green. So I would expect some progression from Double Clutch. You're getting 3-1 on the 12 horse and you're getting 6-1 on Double Clutch. So I like the value from that standpoint. I think this is a horse that should progress nicely. I know this horse can do the distance. It likes the turf. So there's a lot of check boxes there. I just think in a maiden race where there's a lot of unknowns, this horse provided a really, I think, very promising debut. And I think just a modest improvement will really play nicely. This horse, it showed off a very, very nice turn of foot in that race, going from really far back. I think they might ask this horse for a little bit more speed, breaking from the inside this time. So I don't know if it'll get shuffled back quite as far. But I think if this horse can get kind of a mid-pack trip, I really like the win chances for this horse, because once the horse can unleash this turn of foot, as we've seen in some other turf races, once this horse can get out of trouble, can really do some nice work. So I like Double Clutch in this. Like I said, a $5,000 play, 6-1 on the morning line. I just feel like a pretty conservative to safe play in this race. And
man, when you said the deuces right there in baseball season, I can't tell you how many times being here in LA, Vin Scully on the radio, 2 on, 2 out. It's a 2-2 count and a 2-run lead for the Dodgers. The deuces are why. I can hear Vinny, right? The soothing sounds of good old Vin. Man, I don't got to go far to find my horse. I'm right next door to you.
Yeah.
I'm at the Airspeed Velocity. So let's look at the race that Airspeed Velocity comes out of. This was the debut race that Airspeed Velocity showed up in. The winner of that race, Big Invasion, came back and won the Texas Glitter Stakes by 3 lengths, earned a 96 Beyer speed figure in doing so. The second place finisher in that race captured the time, won next time out, 5 furlongs on the turf, earned an 85 Beyer speed figure in doing so. We also go back to Fuerteventura. Got to get my pronunciations right. This one dropped in for maiden 30, won a maiden 30 claimer that day. So lots of things that I do. I don't actually have a checklist, but maybe I should build one, right? Maybe we should build like your handicapping checklist, because there are always horses that I love when I can check, when I can go, oh, okay. So now we check off the box that they faced really good company, right?
Yeah.
The race came back live. So now let's watch the race and see what happened. And Airspeed Velocity is the 10 in the race that we're going to watch. Now, Airspeed Velocity is a step slow coming out of the gate. The number 10, and you can see kind of just having to ask a little bit to keep up with this horse. And unfortunately, the way that we saw, this race finish, there's not a lot of passing here either, right? The winner is sitting third inside. The horse who finishes second, captured the time, is on the lead. And R10, was asked, actually does move up to within about 2 to 3 lengths right here. You get that slight little bid at the top of the lane. So they show you a little something right here, just that this horse has a little bit. Now, then they move down to the inside and still trying here.
Yeah.
I didn't think this was a bad effort. And we know that this race came back live. You can see the 10 down on the inside, still trying. Now they're going to stretch out from 5 to a mile. And so I know that the race was live. I thought visually it wasn't bad. Now we take a look at the pedigree. And what we see in the pedigree is, oh, wow, this was a pretty decent dam. This is a mare who won had turf success.
Yep.
You can see was multiple stakes placed on the turf and is a pretty classy individual. In fact, broke their maiden going 7 furlongs on the synthetic at Keeneland. So checks a pedigree box there with the dam. Shouldn't be any problem on the turf going longer. We check the siblings here. Bourbon in May was an 8-time winner on the turf. We see a lot of success going long on the turf. Delmar Drama was a turf winner. We go to Plans to Prosper, who didn't win on the turf, but actually was placed on the turf, and their success on the grass was going longer. Yeah. So now all of a sudden, I've been able to, with this one horse, like create this resume now where it's like, okay, the race came back live. I can see multiple next out winners. And actually, the race wasn't bad. There was some sneaky talent that horse showed. And then we look at the pedigree. And the pedigree, the dam won on the turf. And we have no issues with the siblings who won long on the turf. Those check all of those boxes, Matt. Now we go down. This is something that you point out quite a bit. I like that since that February 19th race, we've gotten 3 more grass works.
I love that.
From this horse.
Yeah.
They add the blinkers.
Yeah.
This horse is a first-time gelding. You get a jock change. Yep. I mean, there are a lot of things to point out that are positives that you could see some upside with this horse at a nice price of 8-1. So for StableDuel will only cost us $3,000.
Yep.
Airspeed Velocity for me early on in the card. This one is just, it's one of could this horse run dead last? Sure. But as a gambler, as a handicapper, it checks so many of the boxes for things that I'm looking at.
Yeah, and the blinkers on was intriguing to me because this was a horse that I was kind of. It's funny. This was if you had taken out double clutch, this probably would have been my play in this race or my suggestion because there's no other speed in this race, and so the blinkers. This horse could very well get the sort of trip that we talked about in some of these others, where this horse just gets to the lead and just is able to control the pace and is able to kind of have plenty in the tank. Like you said, the pedigree would suggest this is not going to be an issue. The blinkers make a big difference, I think. And you get this horse up on the lead. There's nobody else really in this field that has a legitimate shot at challenging on the lead, I think.
I know that, like, I don't, and let me say this. I don't want to do the job. So I'm not saying this because of that, but is the race that we watched was Failed to Menace?
No, I would not. And as much as I love that racing note, obviously,
that's your guy. That's you.
As my Twitter handle.
You know, but that's
no, at no point. Yeah,
you could have said like wide early, moved inside, flat lane. I mean, there was a lot of things that you could have said, but Failed to Menace, I don't think so. I mean, that to me is when a horse is just never in it, is completely outrun. So airspeed. Velocity.
Yeah, I think flattened out would have been kind of the note I would have. That's what it seemed like more to me than Failed.
Me too. Yeah, shifted around, flat, late, something like that. But Failed to Menace, I don't know. And when I see that, ever since I've started talking to you a lot more, I swear I noticed that one, and like every time I notice it, I go to watch the race just to make sure.
Right.
Just to make sure, because I'm like, man, I don't want to have this horse off that Failed to Menace comment line to get me. Matt'll let me know about it if not. So, so where do you want to go next? I head to the fourth.
So we can just go straight next door to the third, actually. Cool. And in the third race, I really like the 4 Habanero. This is a horse that is 10-1. And I think this is a horse where I just think the pace makes this horse playable.
Yep.
So this is it's a sprint with a ton of early speed. Almost everybody in this field is going to try to get on the lead or get close to it. So there should be an extraordinarily hot pace. Habanero tends to sit right behind that. And I just think that running style in this particular race is going to work out really nicely because I think they're going to push on reasonable fractions. And I think Habanero is going to be the one to capitalize on it. Again, at 10-1, I don't necessarily need this horse to win, but I think this horse is going to pick up some pieces late because I think you're going to see some horses that are just gassed. Additionally, this is a horse that, in his career has never missed the top 3 when running on fast dirt surfaces. So he's been running on synthetic a lot recently, but he does have good experience on the dirt.
Yep.
He's also 6 for 9, hitting the board with 3 wins at this distance. So he's a reliable horse and who turns in a lot of very honest performances, I feel like, particularly recently. And I just, like I said, I think the way this race sets up, you're looking with, as many as 6 horses battling for the lead in this race. Yeah. And I just think that's, I just think the pace sets up so well for this horse. I know the connections don't necessarily scream out a lot of success, but I just think this race sets up so nicely for the 4 horse that I'll use Habanero for $1,000 in my stable on a day where I like a lot of horses at big prices, but this is one that I do like in this race.
Bold Figure will be flashing some speed from the inside. You're going to get some speed from Distinctive Flower right next door. Sterling Miss is going to be flashing some speed. You'd imagine that towards the outside, you'd have Dance Rhythms be forwardly placed in here. And it's not as if Remain Anonymous wants to be all that far out of it. So, yeah, there's a lot of horses that are going to be up on the front end and pressing the pace there for Habanero to sit.
Yep.
That was my first, when I think I mentioned it at one of the last few weeks. Out in Southern California, man, I could never, and I still can't, I can never catch Bejarano. He is just one.
I know. I thought of you when I picked this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, he would win at 30%. And I would have the 70 that he would lose. Like every one of the 70 that he wouldn't win would be the times when I was playing him. I just could not catch Rafi, but definitely capable. And he's aboard. Have Habanero there in race number 3. Matt, this next horse, I think we talked about like 2 months ago. I'm going to go to race number 4.
Yeah.
You joined me and DZ for a Turfway Park.
Oh, yeah.
Pick 5 carryover conversation. Yep. And I'm again going to get a little crazy with the Cheese Whiz. I'm going to the outside, the judge and jury. So Here's my big concern with this race. I don't know who can pass horses in here.
Right.
Because it seems like everybody has shown pop and stop speed. Look at Cloud with Rain, True Jedi. We've got a first-time starter here in the 9. The 8, Under Oath, speed and fade. The 7, Improbable Journey, speed and fade. Vintage Vinyl, speed and fade. Strings, speed and fade.
Yeah.
Everybody in this field that's run has been a speed and fade type.
Mm-hmm.
There is only one horse that's actually shown that they can pass some horses. Yep. And what's interesting is, so the judge and the jury was racing on the synthetic the last 3 times. So for our conversation here, I think we can just eliminate those races.
Yep.
Because the race that I'm looking at is the debut.
Yeah.
The October 9th race going 6 furlongs on the dirt at Keeneland. So let's look at that race. Now, here's the field. 4 next out winners in that race.
Mm-hmm.
Kaylee's brother was the winner. They came back and they actually won the Jean Lafitte. They were put up via DQ in a stakes race following that. So a next out stakes winner. The runner-up, Trademark, came out of that race to win back-to-back, won a maiden special weight at Churchill, then won a first-level allowance at Churchill. They thought enough of Trademark that 3 times in a row they've tried him against Graded Stakes Company. They tried to get this horse into the Derby. And you know what? He didn't run all that poorly in his last 2. He finished 5th in both of those races in big fields. He was behind Classic Causeway and Zandon.
Yep.
Look at the horses who he was behind in the Bluegrass. Trademark. Zandon, Smile Happy, Emmanuel. He finished 5th that day.
Right.
Absolutely no shame in there. 3rd place finisher in this race. B. Sud came back to win a maiden special weight. And then B. Sud was off from October to March, showed back up in March, and didn't run that poorly, finishing 3rd in an optional claiming race, like a really strong one.
Yeah.
Look who was way down here. Unoho.
Yep.
Rebel winner. So the debut race where the judge and jury ran the best race that he's ever run was actually in a pretty tough field. He's the 4 in the race that we're going to watch right here. And he doesn't run poorly in this race.
No.
He's down on the inside. Look, he's sort of in tight. So he's got to kind of settle behind horses a little bit here. It's, you watch the race all the way through. It's really not that bad at all. No. And this is his last time he was in a dirt sprint. He kind of runs into a little bit of traffic here. He ends up finishing 4th in this race. It's a field of 9. The 3 horses that finish in front of him all come back to win next out. Like right here, he's live.
Yeah.
Right. And like, this is where I'm looking for a horse who's going to be sitting right here. You can't, like, same type of thing I was saying before. When you're in races against really good horses, he needed that hole to be open right there.
Yep.
When he was going to move. He can't wait. Everybody else moves. And now he's flat. Yeah. Like, you're not going to be able to go on again with other really good horses. You've got to hit it right when it happens. So do things need to break perfectly for a horse like this, the judge and jury? Yeah, in here. And do you look back at a couple of his recent races and go, okay, maybe this form isn't all that great. But some positives that I like. 1, they've never dropped him in class.
Yep.
Right? He's still running against maiden specials. 2, he's going to go as a first-time gelding now. So maybe he'll get a little bit more focus. And 3, his best race was the 6 furlong dirt sprint. And then he comes back to Keeneland on April the 5th. And look at that work.
Yeah.
That's some work that's noticeably better than his other recent works. Maybe he likes this racetrack, right? Maybe this is a track where he just feels pretty good because the best race he's ever run and the best work that we see on the page from him both came at Keeneland. This is another horse that if he runs poorly and maybe he's just outclassed by some of these, sure. But I could see him just kind of grinding up from the outside and picking up pieces late to be like 3rd. And if I'm projecting that kind of trip for a horse like this, I'm absolutely going to throw him into like my early pick 5s and some pick 3s in case he wins. But again, this is a 30-1 shot in StableDuel. This is nothing. Like nothing at all. It gives you opportunity to basically build all around, throw this horse in, and just hope you get a top 5 finish to pick up some points. I think turning back from 6.5. He's not as fast as some of the others. I think the best plan should be, let's just try to sit from the outside.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
no, I agree. I mean, the outside post, I like that a lot in this spot. So, no, I always like to try to find these 30-1 plays who just, again, it's like, is this, if this horse finishes 5th, it's a win for everybody.
Yep.
Like, yeah, love
I've
it.
got 7, 9, and 11. Where do you want to head next?
I have 5 and 8, so we
5
can
and
go to the
8.
5.
Perfect. Let's go to race 5 and tell us where we're headed, Maddie.
And so in the 5th race, we'll go to the second horse, the number 2, Freedom's Way. And this is a horse that, again, is a little bit like a horse I talked about earlier today, where I can explain every single line on the racing form.
Yep.
And it makes sense. And when you look at it, you go, okay, I get it. So this is a $110,000 allowance, non-winners of 2, mile and a 16th on the turf. So Freedom's Way makes his debut at Keeneland at a mile and a 16th on the turf, but it gets taken off the turf.
Yep.
Horse doesn't run particularly well. Then comes back a month later at another maiden special weight at a mile on the turf, stumbles out of the start. And just, that race, again, draw a line through that one.
Yep.
Then comes back to Fairgrounds again in December, runs another maiden special, and has some issues there too. Was bumped, was super wide, still manages to finish second at a 20-1 price. So really kind of outran the odds. More importantly, that happened at a mile and an 1/8 and was gaining ground late. So this horse likes the distance. Then finally comes back and kind of in a shocker from the far inside post gets a great trip. Yep. And which is not what you would have expected. I mean, I think most of us probably would have faded that horse that day, given all of the issues that horse has had up to that point. And then you draw the number 1. Well, that horse actually finally gets a good post and wins with ease. And so I just think this is a horse that has just run into trouble in a lot of its races, but has demonstrated the ability to overcome that trouble 2 out. And last time out, when it's finally got a race that went its way, showed what it can do, and breaking its maiden is now taking a step up, to an allowance, but has Louis Saez aboard, who was aboard on that maiden victory. And I just think this horse is one that might just, we might look back on this horse and go, God, what was going on in those first couple of starts? So you just kind of have to draw a line through them. This horse is very classy, though, otherwise. And I think that last speed figure is absolutely right there with anybody else in this field. Yep. So I like that, too. Freedom's Way, 6-1, only going to cost you $5,000 on StableDuel. So, again, keeps you in line with your budget. You go with a couple of these more inexpensive plays you and I are talking about. Now you really have plenty of money to save up for maybe a couple of favorites later in the card if you'd like. So Freedom's Way is the way I'll be going in race 5.
Freedom's Way, the deuce for Maddie in race number 5. You see that improvement in each of those grass races for Freedom's Way. I am going to head to race number 7. This might be my favorite play of the weekend in race number 7. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love this horse. And it's funny, like I get nervous now when I like horses this much, because it's like, I get nervous. It's like, damn, I hope this horse runs well, or I hope I don't lose too much. But
yeah.
Nonetheless, Basquiat, the number 9.
Oh yeah, okay.
Shout out to Jason Beam, who I'll pull it up and we can watch the race. At the very end, he said something like Basquiat painted a perfect picture, or something It was very just kind of clever. I think it was something that I'm sure he was like thinking about when he saw Basquiat. But so we're watching the number 5 Basquiat here. And so the 5 was running for the first time for Lisa Lewis and hadn't raced since May. This race was in February. Mm-hmm. So we're long layoff that we're dealing with here. And this is a 7 furlong race at Tampa. So look at the 5 with the green cap, immediately in some traffic.
Yep.
And Matt, I cannot believe, watching this race all the way through, that this horse holds his position right here the whole way. He never gets shuffled. He never gets steady. How does he not get in some trouble right here? Yeah. Like, he's right up in that mix. Look at him. He's like right down there. He's in tight. He was like 3 deep. The 7 loses ground. The 10 loses ground. But the 5 just holds firm right there inside. 2 deep. He's just right there nicely, waiting for positioning, still waiting. And now things get difficult again because he's still trapped.
Yep.
You can see he wanted to move to the outside, nowhere to go there. You got 2 horses to the outside of him. He can't go inside, so he's just holding position, and now, boom, opening up. Good night. Here comes the 5, Basquiat. And that, to me, was very impressive, that this horse was able to hold that positioning. As soon as they got an opening there, absolutely exploded.
Yep.
And what did Jason say here at the end?
Masterpiece today, won it by 2.
He said Basquiat painted.
Life changer at the inside with Shaldog. Basquiat painted a masterpiece today, won it by 2.
Just made me
Nice.
Basquiat painted a masterpiece today.
Love it.
And another one, Matt, where these horses were, I can literally, in his 8-race career, we can go race by race.
Yep.
Debut, he wins on the dirt at Gulfstream Park going 7.
Yep.
So then he comes back in his 2nd race. Look at this field.
Yep.
The winner, Capit to win, is a grade 2 winner or a grade 3 winner and grade 1 placed.
Yep.
Capit to win, we remember, super fast. Tap It to Win was 2nd in the Jerkins. He was only 7-2 in the Pat Day Mile. Legitimate, nice animal. The runner-up that day, Mystic Guide, shout out to him. He just came back on the work tab. He's working right now. This was the Dubai World Cup winner.
Yeah.
This is a multiple graded stakes winner who is awesome.
Yeah.
3rd place finisher, Country Grammar. The race that's not even on the page is the Dubai World Cup that he just won.
Right. Yeah.
So look at the 3 horses who Basquiat finished behind in that race. I mean, that is unbelievable in that group. So then he comes back in his 3rd start. He goes a mile and an 1/8, which is just too far for him.
Yeah.
He runs into Happy Saver.
Forget about it.
Happy Saver at that time was undefeated and is your grade 1 Jockey Club winner.
Yep.
So look at the 4 horses that he finished behind in those 2 races.
Yeah.
All graded stakes winners. 3 of them are grade 1 winners. And after that, they're like, let's go to the turf. We keep running into these monsters. Like, let's just go and get some green, So what happens, you go show up on the green, you run into Proven Strategies.
Right.
Who comes out of that race and goes on and wins a stakes race. So, you run well there. Okay, so 3rd in a tough race on the grass. You come back, you run into Ever Dangerous, another horse who comes out of that race to win a stakes race. And remember when he shocked the world at 75-1?
Right.
In Bryan Station on Breeders' Cup weekend on the undercard. So, and Basquiat, that was the race right after beating Basquiat. And every race this poor horse came out of was against good horses who were live. He caught them all right when they were at their best, right at their absolute best.
Mm-hmm.
Then the November race in the end of 2020. So he doesn't really run all that well that day. But look at the layoff lines. I'm sure there was some sort of a physical issue because he went to the bench from November to May of 2021. He shows back up in May. He only runs 1 time. He doesn't run all that great. And then he's back to the bench again until February of this year. Had to be a physical issue in that race.
Yeah.
Now he comes back for a new barn, shows up. He has the right to have some upside. I really like this horse a lot. I mean, there's so many things to like about him. He fits. If he takes a little step forward on the buyer scale, he's right there. I think he's pretty versatile with his running style. I have no problem with the 7 furlongs. I mean, his dirt form is really sneaky good. Those 4 dirt races, 2 of them were in monster fields. The other 2 were wins. I feel like I could keep talking about this horse till tomorrow, Matt. So I'm going to shut up right now about Basquiat.
I love it.
Yeah, Basquiat. And the best part, too, for a StableDuel situation, he's 12-1. He's only going to cost us $750.
Great play.
Not
Great play
at all. And I do feel like another situation where he shouldn't be overwhelmingly bet, but he's probably more like a 6 or 8-1 shot than a 12-1 shot in here. So I am Basquiat for me in the 7th. Hopefully, as Jason Beam said, he could paint a masterpiece. Attaboy, Jay Beam.
Great call. Great
Beanie
call.
Awards. Well done. Race number 8 from Matt. Where are you headed, Matty?
I like Hear My Prayer, which is the number 8. So we're going to double up on the Ochos. And this is a West Coast turf horse, and traditionally, I know we talked to Caleb from On the Wrong Lead last week about some of the big races, and I know he and I kind of share a general sentiment, which is sometimes fading West Coast turf horses when they come east.
Yep.
But this is a horse that has East Coast turf experience, ran at Gulfstream, and has some good races there.
And the sprinters, or I think is what he was saying too, right?
Yeah.
I think for the sprinters, I don't mind as much the ones that come from SoCal because they got that speed, and the speed will still carry.
Yep, speed carries, yes. And so this is a horse that you looked at. Wishing Well performance was a little disappointing, but possibly because maybe stretching out to 6.5 furlongs and the downhill turf maybe took it out of this horse the previous time out. Now we're going back to 5.5 furlongs, which is really much more in this horse's wheelhouse.
Yep.
And this horse just turns in honest performances. I mean, this just doesn't turn in a bad performance. You get Florent Giroux aboard. And so I just think at 10-1 for $1,000, I really like this horse a lot. I mean, this horse is at this 5 to 5.5 furlong distance, 8 career races at that distance.
That's what she is.
5 wins and 2 show places. So 7 for 8 hitting the board with 5 wins. This horse is just very, very good at this distance on this surface. So I just think you're going to see a bounce back. It's third off from the form cycle. And so I have a lot of, I like this horse a lot. This horse placed at the grade 3 2 times out ago. So in kind of the Giants Causeway Stakes, I think this horse absolutely belongs. And at 10-1, I just really like the value. And I think this horse is a strong win candidate, has looked very strong in workouts leading up to this. So I'm all over the 8 here. Hear my prayer in the Giants Causeway.
We see with these turf sprinters too. You sort of assume like, 5 furlong, 6.5, no big deal. The difference between the 6.5 and like the 5 and 5.5 furlong turf sprints, night and day.
Yeah.
Night and day. Because you can see it literally. You can just see it in the form for Hear My Prayer. The 7.5 furlong race down at Gulfstream Park was a little too long. The 6.5 races just seem a little bit too long. This is a 5.5-er.
Yeah. And we talk about this a lot of times with cutback, where when horses go from a mile to like 6.5, we like it. But when a horse goes from a mile to 5, we tend to go, I don't know about this, because a lot of times you need that aggressive early speed in those 5 furlongs to really do it. And a lot of times milers don't have that. And so, and you even look at that performance in the Wishing Well last time out, you could just tell the 6.5 was too much. I mean, the horse was right there in the lead, with everyone, and then just faded down the stretch, that last, furlong and a half. So, I just think this horse is going to bounce back in a big way, has run in these types of races before, and has showed its class in these types of races, these kind of non-graded stakes races. So just really like the spot for him. And, you get Florent Giroux aboard, who I know Flo's been off to a little bit of a slow start at Keeneland, but still, I mean, this is he's a good jockey who's going to get, he's not just taking on rides, and it's not like it's a Brad Cox horse. He's taking on, he's riding for someone he doesn't ride for very often. So, and clearly he must see something with this horse that he likes.
Every time this horse runs in Southern California, I always hear Like a Prayer from Madonna in my head. Or also Rufio. Rufio did a cover. I don't know if you know who Rufio is.
I do, yes.
I loved me some covers of like pop songs. Rufio would do a lot of those. So life is a mystery. Everyone must stand alone. We're gonna hear the prayer today for Maddie in race number 8.
Fingers crossed.
The number 8, and we move along to the Stone Street Lexington, race number 9 on Saturday up at Keeneland. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, folks. Remember, we are here every Friday morning, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. Matt, you know what? Before we finish up, we've got a couple other races right now. Now would be a great time for you to mention a really cool idea that you had. And you shared it with me, and you shared it on social media the last few days. You're going to be doing something charitable in the days leading up to the Kentucky Derby. Why don't you tell us about what the idea that you have is?
Yeah, so it's just an idea. There's no big like I don't know. There's no like website for this or anything like that.
Oh, it's just
But it's an idea. I love horses. That's why I got into horse racing. I think that's why most of us got into horse racing. We love these animals. And in the 20 days leading up to the Kentucky Derby, for the 20 horses that are going to be in the field, I decided that I would donate $20 to a different cause, a different off-track thoroughbred retirement charity. And so it's kind of a 20 for 20 initiative, $20 for the 20 days leading up to the Derby for the 20 horses in the field. And listen, that's $400. And a lot of us spend that much money at the track on
one day,
maybe one day, maybe
one
2
race.
days. So it's not, it's enough that it's something that doesn't hopefully overwhelm a lot of people. And listen, if you don't have 20, if you can just donate $1 or $2, that's great as well. But
Or
I
maybe
just think
one of the days, you
Yeah.
have a good day that day, and you can put a few extra bucks in, or
exactly.
just maybe you just bookmark all these charities, because right now it's a bad time for you, but in a few weeks or a few months, maybe
Yep.
it's not. That's the day you hit, and you're going to look back and see all of these charities that Matt was promoting. And so
Yep.
I love this. I know it's a great idea. It's a great way to try to get people to give a little bit back. And I'm gonna do my best to also be donating and promoting along with you, my friend. I really like what you did here.
And yeah, if you just follow me on social media, Failed to Menace, this is pinned at the top of my profile, so you can always see it. But every day, starting on Monday the 18th, which is 20 days out from the Derby, so every day from Monday forward, I'll be doing a screenshot and I'll be highlighting kind of a new and different off-track thoroughbred charity. And if you want to give to that one, great. If there's one that's near and dear to your heart, or a local one maybe you volunteer for, hey, hit me up, let me know about it, because I think a lot of us
need a few towards the end, right?
don't you know it, I've already reached out to some people. But I mean, I think there's some who there are some really big OTTB charities that people just know about, the race fund and things like that, and all the work that Sherry Courtney does, Acacia Courtney's mother, and all the work they do. So there are some really big ones, but there's a lot of really small ones
that people don't know about, and you're going to get a little bit of an opportunity to shine a light onto them.
Absolutely. And I just think at a time when we are celebrating the cream of the crop, it's important that we also take care of these horses that aren't running anymore, to make sure they have a great life after they leave the racetrack.
Matt, incredible gesture from you, buddy. And we'll make sure that we show this each and every week moving forward, and we'll show some of the charities that you've donated to, and really good stuff, man. I wanted to make sure that if a few extra people were watching this, maybe one or two will be pointed in the right direction too. And I see this kind of stuff too. It's a number that's like not some massive number. You're not trying to go out there and be like, look at me, how much I'm donating to charity.
Right.
But why I always like when I donate something to put it out there is because it's not trying to say, look, I'm this great person who did it. I just want to inspire maybe one other person. That's all. And if even one other person sees that I donated and they went, oh, that's a cool place to donate, and they donate $1, I feel like what I've done is worked. And so that's what it's all about, is just trying to pay it forward here. Also a very good movie with Haley Joel Osment. We can't really talk about Kevin Spacey anymore. So
problematic.
I can't discuss Spacey. He will not be named.
Back to horse racing.
It's really unfortunate, because my girlfriend Stephanie, she does a great job with some of our space heaters that we have around. She would name them, and she named one of them Kevin Spacey.
Of course.
And then
you would.
The other one was Derek Heater. So she did a fantastic job with those. I got to give her credit. So real creative with those. So Maddie, let's get back to the racing. Do you have any opinion in the Lexington at all? Even if it's not a StableDuel play, or just from the race overall, what did you think of the Lexington? There are a couple horses who actually might be able to get into the Derby if they were to get the right kind of points and get in. In due time, last we saw in the Fountain of Youth was pretty good.
Yeah, and so this is an interesting race. I do have some opinions about this. They're not necessarily for StableDuel, but this is a 20-pointer. So the horse you really have to pay attention to is In Due Time, because In Due Time could potentially leapfrog horses, because it currently has 20 points, could potentially leapfrog horses to get into the Derby. The other horse that I think to pay attention to that I would actually kind of fade is the 9 Tawny Port. And Tawny Port is coming back. Everybody's making a big deal about Dwayne Lucas bringing Ethereal Road back on a week's rest, which I have opinions about as well. And we'll talk about that maybe another time. But Tawny Port's coming back on 2 weeks rest. This horse has never run on anything less than 4 weeks rest. I have a feeling this is Brad Cox just trying to get this horse back on the dirt a little bit. And I would not be surprised if this is more of a extended workout rather than we're cranking this horse up to try to get this horse into the Derby. Cox already has Cyberknife and Zozos in the Derby. So I'm kind of out on Tawny Port. I do like In Due Time. I think this is a horse that has a lot to run for. This is coming off a natural cycle. So this is kind of a natural setup for this race. I know a lot of people blame Paco for that spill at the Fountain of Youth. I get that. But Paco can be aggressive and that's a problem sometimes. But this horse has answered the bell every single time, and has stepped up nicely in terms of stepping up in distance and answering the bell and doing really well. The horses that the horses that it's lost to, Simplification, Dean's List, Dean Delivers, are all really good horses. And those are the only 3 horses it's ever lost to. So, this horse has never turned in a bad performance. So I do like In Due Time here. I shudder to use Howling Time in any way, just because the Dale Romans thing. I mean, I was all over that horse at the Fountain of Youth, and that really hurt me. It did not run well that day. Maybe second off the layoff, you see a little bit of an improvement. I think Major General is kind of an interesting horse, also kind of second off the layoff.
Much better this time than last time, right?
Yeah.
And I think for him, the game plan has got to be, let's just shove this horse, right?
Yeah.
That's got to be like, there's not very much speed in here either.
No, there's not.
You look up and down the race, and it's like, okay, Call Me Midnight's not going. Dash Attack's a closer. Tawny Port's sitting. Strava will sit a little bit. I want to talk about him in a second. Major General, who, his best race came right on. I mean, his best races came when he was close. He broke his maiden right on the front end, and then he sat a little bit in the Iroquois, but he kind of moved early. I think they're going to want to get him back close to the front because he missed the break in the Tampa Bay Derby. So at least he did have an excuse there.
Yeah.
He did stumble. He was way out of it. Skate to Heaven isn't going to be fast.
Right.
Maybe Howling Time, but it's not like he's a speed demon.
No.
His best races actually were when he sat a little bit more.
Yeah, when he sat. So and Major General, somebody pointed this out. Major General in that Tampa Bay Derby was actually loaded first. And I want to say spent like over 2.5 minutes in the gate because they were having so many issues with getting the other horses loaded and then stumbles. And so I think you could say this horse just was kind of anxious in the gate, just kind of, I hate it when I see horses, that just are in the gate for so long because they're having trouble getting other horses in. And I always kind of start to go, this is just not going to go well. So some legitimate excuses. I don't necessarily love the price at 4-1 from a StableDuel standpoint, but I wouldn't be surprised if that horse runs a lot better than last time out.
I'm sure you'd be shocked to hear that in my earlier days, I was in a couple musicals. So I'm sure.
Same here, man. Same here. I was too.
And one of them that I was in was the Pirates of Penzance. And,
okay.
And one of the songs is about the Major General. Hurrah, hurrah for the Major General. And it is a glorious thing to be a Major General. I am the Major. I always still, 15, 20 years later, those Pirates of Penzance songs, man.
Yeah.
They get stuck in my head.
Listen, I was in a musical in high school. It was called The Boyfriend, and I can still crank out. Yeah, I can still do that. I remember my first musical my mom ever showed me was Brigadoon. I love that. I mean, I was singing in the rain. I mean, I was raised on musicals as a kid, I love it. Yeah, awesome. I'm all over.
And so shout out Major General. I can still see them all right here. Fun times. The horse. So Major General, if I'm playing pick 4s and pick 5s. Major General's on the ticket for me. In Due Time's on the ticket for me. Completely agree with you. I'm trying to beat Tawny Port.
Yeah.
What's wrong with this horse, Strava?
Yeah.
Especially from a StableDuel standpoint.
Sure.
So, debut wins right here at Keeneland, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. That's in October of the end of last year. Off for a few months, shows back up in January at the fairgrounds, going 6 furlongs. Sloppy track and stumbles that day. Multiple excuses. The horse still runs second. Not a bad effort coming off a few months. February the 19th stretches out for the first time. So runs into a horse named Cyberknife.
Sure.
Cyberknife came back to win the Arkansas Derby.
Yep.
So that form was flattered quite a bit. So now from a class standpoint, I'm not too worried about Strava competing with a group like this because I feel like Cyberknife is a pretty good measuring stick for a 3-year-old group like this, right?
Yep.
Cyberknife won a big prep race, the Arkansas Derby. So now you look at Strava's race where it was at Fairgrounds, so they don't have these races up here to, that we can pull up.
Yeah.
But Strava broke through the gate, actually, to start. Which
broke
horses,
the opposite of slow.
How many horses break through the gate and win, Matt?
None.
One,
you
one
can count
out
on
of
one
million,
hand. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it never happens.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, it was a decent start for Strava from post 10, settled 5th, not a 4th, was 2 or 3 deep, then looms up into contention, was about 2 lengths off, but just and moved right up into 2nd, just couldn't get the Cyberknife, and ends up finishing 3rd there. That was the first time going long. Now you're going to be 2nd time going long. You're going to be 3rd start off the bench. The blinkers come on. You come back to a racetrack where you've won and you've run really well. From a class standpoint, maybe this horse is a little bit low on the buyer scale, but was just in a race with a horse that came back to win the Arkansas Derby. So I think they stack up pretty well. Strava is 20-1.
Yeah.
And, connections, Dallas Stewart, Tyler Gaffleone, super capable connections that win at big prices all the time.
Yep.
This horse in StableDuel cost another one. Like today or on Saturday in StableDuel, I've got a 30-1, a 20-1, and a 12-1 that I make legitimate cases for in my lineup. So what I'll do is because those horses I'm making cases for, but is it likely that all 3 of them win? Probably not, right?
Yeah.
So what I can do is I can play a couple different lineups with a couple different horses there, right? And use one of those bigger prices on one, and then in the other, then I can be a little bit more logical, right? With horses that are probably more likely. Then I play another lineup with another one of the bomb horses that I can build around, and I fill in with some more logicals. But in pick 4s and stuff like that, that's how you get the times that I've hit the biggest ones at Sam Houston when I nail big pools, or it's when you've got 20 and 30-1 shots back to back, right? Because no one else is going to do that. And so maybe it is the day where we get a Basquiat, and then a couple races later, we get a horse like Strava and we put them all together. Strava is going to be in the mix for me in the Lexington, Matt.
So I just want to give a couple of updates because the scratches have been announced for Friday at Keeneland, and there are some notable ones that I just want to let people know about. So one in the 7th race, Coffee Maker is a scratch.
Thank you.
And so that was a race that we talked about Barry liking this horse. And then the big one is in the Maker's Mark Mile. We have Ivar, Some Like It Hot Brown, and Public Sector, all of whom are scratched.
Wow. So from a StableDuel standpoint, that's like a race you really want to get involved in, because a lot of other horses' morning line prices are going to be severely cut down because of that. Right. You'll be paying up for horses that are 10-1 that are going to be no doubt half of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's gone from an 11-horse race to an 8-horse race. And, I think there's maybe a couple you can just toss. But yeah, I agree. I mean, and that's why Really Smooth Like Straight is now the only horse that's over 5-1. And so there's a ton of value in that race now. So I just wanted to let people know that as they're filling out those stables.
Awesome. Great information there, Matt. Thank you for giving us the update.
Yep.
So I've got one more at Keeneland on Saturday in race number 11. Do you have anything else?
I'm all done, but I probably have an opinion in race 11.
Let's finish up our this weekend in StableDuel. Got to say a big thank you to our buddy Barry for sending us a couple plays. But man, we miss him. We miss him when he's not here with us. So shout out to Barry. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us every Friday morning. This is a cool race because we're going to get the return of a horse that I love, Highly Motivated.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this horse, and I think he's going to have a very good year as an older horse because I think he's got some versatility to him.
Yep.
I don't know how far he wants to go, but man, maybe he could be a really good miler or even a sprinter. I think there are like lots of positives for him. Now, I don't like him in this spot though, because I think he's going to be overbet.
Yeah.
People know Highly Motivated. He just ran in the Derby last time out, but he, in thinking about the way that he came back to the races last year in the Gotham, he ran like a horse who really needed the race. And maybe he's the type of horse who will need a race or two to kind of get into his best form. So I'm going to be passing on him on the win end. I think, Soup and Sandwich is a horse that people know because of the Derby. He'll probably take some support. Yep. There are some names of horses. Escape Route, coming off of some big buyer speed figures, I think he's going to take a lot of support with Irad Ortiz Jr. in here. So the horse who I think will sort of fly under the radar, and Ducali is really nice too. This horse is capable of like big efforts. Yeah. But he hasn't raced since the end of November. I think it's a good spot for Chocolate Bar, the 11. Yeah. Because he's got a few races under his belt. He's 3 for 20, so he's not like all that sexy, right? Like he's not like a win machine. His form isn't all that incredible, but his dirt races are the races that I really like. He's only been on the dirt 3 times. Look at the 3 times he was on the dirt. One of them was back here at Saratoga when he was behind like some legitimate horses. Like Let Me Know was a nice horse early on. Like this is a legitimate stakes quality, like upper allowance horse at the least. Shoplifted was another one who early on is a stakes winner and a stakes quality at the very least upper allowance type horse. Mijos was another one who actually has some good races and some back class to go into. So I didn't mind the race that Chocolate Bar was in. That was his first ever start on the dirt. His other 2 starts on the dirt since then, he ran into a horse that I've played a few times back and talked about on this show, Collaborate. Yep. And where Collaborate, he hasn't looked as impressive. I guess he wasn't bad in the Sir Shackleton. He did finish second. I don't know why in my head I was playing it like he didn't run that well that day, but he did. He finished second. It was the Gulfstream Park Mile. But the point with Collaborate is he's capable on his best days of throwing in big races, right? Like we saw when he won that race on January 7th and earned a 94 buyer speed figure in doing so. Bank on Shea was 4th, came back to win the Pelican. They thought enough of Bank of Shea that they threw him in the Carter, and he ran into an absolute monster named Speaker's Corner. Mutazovic was in this race too. This horse is decent. This is a graded stakes winner who's got some back class. So that was the second career race that Chocolate Bar ran on the dirt. Third start on the dirt, he runs into Prevalence. Yep. And Prevalence just came back and won a stakes race after this.
Yep. He won a stakes race last weekend at Keeneland. Yeah. That was
at Keeneland in the Commonwealth.
Yep.
So I'm looking at the 3 dirt races for Chocolate Bar. They're all pretty solid. He's now going to go 3rd start of his current form cycle. He's got at 7 furlongs too, he should be in a great spot. We just talked about. Yeah. You went from 6.5 to a mile. Now you cut back from the mile to 7, which I love. He'll have a little bit more punch. 3rd start off the bench, ready to rock and roll. The dirt, he can take another step forward on the dirt, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So lightly raced on the dirt. Even the race on the slop and the main track was not bad here when he ran 3rd. So there's no reason why he can't take another step forward here. And do I think in a month or 2, Highly Motivated and Ducali are going to be better horses than Chocolate Bar? Yep, I do. I think down the line, they'll probably end up being better. But right now, tomorrow, in that spot, that seems like the best race for a horse like Chocolate Bar who's peaking versus a couple other horses who they got bigger fish to fry down the line, right? They're not worried about this prep race. They want to peak probably for the Breeders' Cup at the end of the year and hopefully. So Chocolate Bar. Give me Chocolate Bar to close things out. 6-1 right on your StableDuel $5,000 average. Matt, my friend, I love these Friday mornings, man, because
always fun.
The one thing that why we do what we do, why I work in, sports analysis and coverage, why I've done it my whole life, because I was in movies and commercials and stuff. I kind of was wanting to pick, but this is what I love to do because one of the things I love to do more than anything is sit down with your friends and talk about sports and talk about racing and talk about a game. That's how I've always learned, by listening to other really smart people and like being a sponge and trying to absorb. And every time on Friday, I sit down with you and with Barry, we start talking it out.
Yep.
you mentioned one horse or one thing that I, for some reason, missed and wasn't on my radar. And I end up circling back there, throwing that horse in, or maybe it's not even for today. Maybe it's for next week. Something that I'm like, oh, that's an angle or something that I'm going to use. I like that Matt did that last week. I like that Barry did that last week. So that's why I like to just talk it out. I think that's how most people, around the world hang out with their friends, right? That's how their approach is.
It's true. And it's one of those things where I think with handicapping, we do get, there's a sense of ego, I think sometimes where people
100%.
are like, these are my picks, this sort of thing. But if you think about it, in no other business do you just unilaterally start making decisions and discount everybody else's. Like I work in higher education for my kind of full-time job. And that is, everything is done by committee. You get together, you talk with other really smart people about problems, you hear their solutions, you offer your own solutions, you come to a common consensus. I mean, that's how you make good decisions is by listening to others, discounting things that maybe you think you disagree with, but oh, that's an interesting point of view. And so I've never liked picking horses in a silo. To just kind of go, oh, I don't want to hear what anybody else has to say, or I'm just not going to pay attention to these people. Like, no, like I want to hear what you have to think, or what Barry has to think, or what other people on social media have to think about these horses. And why. The why.
The most important, right? Because I'm not even just a fan of the picks thing. Yeah. That's one thing that people will always ask me for, right? Yep. Can you just give me your picks? Or, people are out the track. And I understand when it's like my friends that are out there. Sure. With you. But if it's someone who generally is a fan of racing, I'd always rather tell you the why.
Yes.
The why matters so much more than the who. Because with the why, you can learn moving forward. You can find something out of that. The day you tell me you know everything is the day I'm going to tell you you don't know shit.
Right.
In the nicest way possible. We can always learn. Don't ever think you know it all. And don't ever, I used to do, just like you said, when I started at TVG, and I was like, man, I'm on TV. I am 23 years old, and everybody loves me and always watching me. And what I say is the most important. And when I pick a horse, that's why I'm on TV. And if someone else, and I thought that way for a while, I really did. And then you get knocked down a peg or two.
Yeah, sure.
And then you sort of realize like you can learn something from everyone.
Yep.
Everyone.
Absolutely.
Even if it's something what not to do, right? If it's you listen, you watch, and you go, oh, you know what? That doesn't really work for me. But you can always learn. Don't ever be someone who thinks you're better than someone else, or thinks you're better than listening to someone, or doesn't think you need to turn someone on in the background and get some extra help. Because you can always learn, and you always better be trying to get better, because if you're not, the person next to you will.
Absolutely.
You're going to be left in the dust.
Absolutely. I'll never forget. There was just very quickly, I was at Laurel a few months back, and there was an older gentleman who kind of looked a little bedraggled. I mean, typical, like, what you might expect on a Thursday at Laurel. And I was sitting there, and I really like this one. I'm blanking on the name of the horse, but I really like this one horse in like a claiming race early on. And the guy came up and started talking to me kind of out of nowhere. And a lot of times I don't like just kind of like, it's not always the best, social situation, but I'm like, but I try to be really nice to people. And I'm like, oh, and so I'm humoring this person and talking to him. Turns out he's the brother-in-law of the owner of the horse I like.
Oh, that's great.
And he goes, by the way, they're just trying to get this horse a workout. And I'm like, okay, we're crossing this one off the list.
Awesome.
Like, it's
that's
so
like, funny.
But it's like, you got to pay attention. You never know who you're going to run into.
Yep.
And you can't judge a book by its cover. And
Nope.
you got to just take everybody, especially when you're at the track. Sometimes the most unlikely people are the ones who have the best tips. And it's not the people who are dressed necessarily like me with a tie or a little cap on or anything like that. It's the people who are working the backside. They know what's going on. It's the people who have connections to those individuals who know what's going on. So always got to learn, always got to pay attention.
Yeah. And I'm someone who, like, I got into this business when I was super young. So I was on TV when I was 20 years old. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is I've dated girls in the industry, and I know this happens to girls way more, is that they'll look at you and be like, oh, I'm not going to listen to them. This is this young kid, right?
Right.
Someone's like, what does this young kid know, right? They're young. How long, like, how old are they, right? How long have they been doing this?
Right.
Don't ever do something like that, right?
No.
Like, don't ever look and say, oh, like, don't, like you said, don't look and judge the book by its cover.
Never.
Listen. listen to someone talk for a little while.
Yes.
You can find out in just a few minutes immediately when someone's done their work and when they know what they're doing. And as soon as they do, there have been a lot of people that I've like ego said, been like, I'm not going to, I don't need to hear what they have to say. And then 6 months later or a year later, I actually did hear what they had to say. And I was like, what an idiot. Why weren't I listening to this person before? I probably could have learned some stuff from them. So,
absolutely.
You know what? Yeah. I might look like a squeaky little pimply faced whatever, but I promise you that whenever there's a show that Matt and I are on, the work has been done.
Yes.
You may go for the whole day, but you'll never come and watch a show that I'm on, whether it be about baseball, basketball, football, soccer, horse racing, wrestling, Marvel. You'll never have to wonder if that crew put in the work ever. Yeah. That's the one thing. We'll always put in the work. We'll always try to lead you to nice prices. Some days it's going to work. Some days it's not, but I will always be a sponge. That's our learning lessons of the week there.
Love it.
For me and Matt, always try to be learning, always be learning, always be winning. Good luck to all of you out there. I hope you have a fantastic weekend today. The sun is shining brightly on in my Long Beach window. So I'm excited for a beautiful day ahead. Matt, my friend, good luck to you. Shout out to our good friend, Barry. Cheers to Barry, who's out there and going to have a fantastic weekend. And I want to say big thanks to Mike Rennie, who was hanging out with us last week.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun with the bringing the smoke. We'll get Mike back in and hanging out with us again in the next few weeks. But you are going to be gone for the next few weeks, right?
Yeah, so my mom is having knee replacement surgery on Tuesday, and so I am going down to very rural Virginia where the internet does not exist, actually, and I am going to be spending about 2 weeks with her, but I'll be back for Derby week, and but I'll still be on social media. I'll still be giving out plays and little things like that, but the idea of a live stream in the metropolis of Gum Spring, Virginia is very unlikely.
You don't even want to try it. It's like,
I don't even want to try it.
I'm safer not even testing it out and
exactly
freezing 7 times throughout the stream.
So. Exactly.
Matt, my friend, thank you so much. I hope you have a great one. Thanks to Steve Gilfeather for checking in. Anytime that you guys are watching us and you have a comment, you have a horse you want to share, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Send us a comment. We'll pull it up. If you want to watch a replay or something about that horse, just ask. I'll pull the replay up. We can look at the chart. Anything that you need, those great folks at DRF Daily Racing Form give us the opportunity with all these great products there and the DRF past performances. Let's close this thing out with the song that's going to get stuck in your head and annoy you all weekend long. One more time, Joey Cleveland, take it away.
Better, you want to spread your pony knowledge.